Devi, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Vidya, we can hear you.
Right, thank you. Devi, are we starting now?
Can we start in 5 minutes time? Mr. Buddhipala, he will be joining in a while.
I'm here. I'm here.
There, yeah, Mr. Vidya Singh.
Yeah.
are we to look for, wait for a few minutes? Because we have only 62. We have,
Yes. Yeah, Bandula, because there are about 100 who registered. No?
yes. Can we
Better-
wait?
I think it is better wait for maybe a couple of minutes, Bandula. They will
Yeah.
be joining. Yeah.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah, can hear.
Bandula.
Yeah. Can
Yes,
you hear
Bandula.
me? Can you
Yeah,
hear me? Yeah.
we can very well.
Okay, good. Good.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Fernando. Mr. Fernando.
Mr. Fernando is also available.
Yeah.
Am I audible and can
Very
you
much,
see me?
yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Good morning, Bandula.
Very good morning.
Morning, Mr. Vijay.
Good morning.
Good morning, good day.
Good
and
morning. Good
everyone.
morning.
Right.
Thanks. Thanks for joining.
No problem.
Mute Karando.
Maybe the others can switch off the video unless they're asking a question or something. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm suggesting. Otherwise, there can be a lot of disturbances. Yes.
Yeah. If they can be on mute and stop the video.
Yeah, we have 90 now. Time is 10:05. Are we
Yeah,
to
I
start?
Better
Good
to start. Bandula.
now.
Yes. Darshan, we can. Very good morning to everybody. We welcome all of you for this very special session on National Business Excellence Awards application briefing. This is generally taking place just before the application submissions. We do it physically. We have done it physically previously at our auditorium. Now, due to the pandemic situation, we have decided that we are doing it online. And this session will be recorded and available live even now on Facebook. And the recording will also be available for anybody to view. We will start this process now. I would like to welcome all of the speakers on behalf of the National Chamber. Mr. Sunil G. Vijay Singh, Chairman of the National Business Excellence 2021 panel of judges, and Mr. Nandika Buddhipala, President of the National Chamber, and Mr. Mr. Sanath Fernando, Chairman of the Technical and the Financial Evaluation Panel, NBEA 2021. So we will begin with a brief welcome address by Mr. Nandika Buddhipala, President of the National Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you very much, Bandula. Good morning to everybody. Specifically, take opportunity to thank Mr. Vijay Singh and Mr. Fernando joining me. And there again, this is going to be extremely important event for us. And specifically at this particular juncture where there are certain changes in our application form. In fact, we have been deliberating on the application form. We thought that there should be some kind of change to the application form, but it should be kind of a very gradual change rather than wholesale big, huge change. And we have seen a lot of new developments coming into the business space during the pandemic and afterwards, specifically the environmental aspects. And there again, the governance and the social aspects as well. Increasingly throughout the world, we have seen people are trying to invest in companies where they have accelerated their ethics, governance, and having some purpose. Now, after looking at all these kind of new developments, we thought it's better for us to maybe form a committee where we are going to look at relevant changes which are going to be very important for the business world of the Sri Lankan business. So we formed a committee and Vijay Singh accepted my invitation to chair that committee. So we had myself, Mr. Vijay Singh heading the committee, and even Mr. Vijay Singh helped us within this particular committee, and specifically need to appreciate the fact that Mr. Sanath Fernando contributed a lot as part of this particular committee, and finally Mr. Priyantha Herath also was there with us. So we look at the changes that are required. We understood the fact that ESG, environmental, social, and governance, kind of new developments, and the most of the organizations throughout the world, specifically the funds who used to invest in corporates, they have separate very senior position created as ESG manager, or ESG consultant, or ESG officer, mainly ESG officer kind of, where they look at all the companies throughout the world where they are going to invest. And they came up with certain indexes to measure what kind of rating that they can give, something like credit rating, even their rating is there. Now, the other side of the story is even the rating agencies. All the three rating agencies like Fitch Rating, then Moody's and S&P, all of these rating agencies also have their ESG rating and ESG indexes. And that is one side of it. Then when we look at the certain the companies, certain institutions like ADB, IFC, DG, Propaco, DCF, CDC, UK, all these organizations also inculcated very strong ESG culture. So then we need to look at how we are going to maybe get some flavor out of it. Otherwise, we are not going to be very competitive as far as our investment space is concerned. So we have a challenge. How we are going to mitigate this challenge, how we are going to overcome this challenge. Then we thought it is better for us to come up with certain the kind of indicators where the corporates can learn, where the corporates can understand, where the corporates can inculcate in their organizations. So for us to do so, we thought the gradual introduction of certain parameters in our Business Excellence Award application is going to be the most important one. We started with slight change in our model even, where we thought the strategy is also going to be an important element. We had a conversation, I can remember, we argued with each other, whether the strategy is the most important thing or whether the leadership is the most important thing. Maybe both are important. Because if you have very strong strategy, which is inculcated and which is established even the change of the leadership cannot change the strategy. But sometimes the leadership also can change the strategy. So we look at all these kind of aspects. Then we look at the purpose of the existence. Why the organizations have a purpose. Then that purpose should be kind of very broad thing. I'm just trying to come back to it. Like, for example, it says the people are, the investors are looking at organizations where the capital is increasingly drawn to organizations that are trusted, ethical, and environmentally friendly. Organizations that seek to create long-term value. They are again the long-term value, not for only the shareholders, but not for the selected few people, but to entire community. So that's the kind of understanding. That's why the purpose of the organization is going to be important. That purpose is going to be a very broad one, maybe broader than sometimes the vision. So some of these elements we have incorporated into our application. When you look at 100-odd questions that we used to raise, giving the clarity of allocation marks, I think we have introduced, Sanath is the most suitable person to explain it. He will explain it when it comes to the main presentation that he is going to share with you. I think we have come up with about 15, 16 new elements or new questions to test the particular the aspects of the business organization. It is mainly coming from the CSR area, sustainability area, but even other places also Sanath touched on certain other developments which are required for us to elevate up to accepted the ESG compliance, which is going to be extremely sound and good for us to attract investments in the medium and the long run. But there again, the important element here is going to be, we are not going to change wholesale entire thing. We are not believers of the overnight changes. We are believers of gradual changes, and we are believers of going along with the organizations and supporting them for us to get into a better the structure, better business performance, and that should take place gradually. When you look at over maybe 100-odd questions, we would have added maybe about 10, 15, maybe 15% as far as the numbers are concerned. But as far as the marks are concerned, I think even a bit less than that. So that's our kind of expectation. And I believe that will help the business organizations and our members and the applicants who are going to come forward. We have seen some amount of the enthusiasm. Unfortunately, we were unable to do our National Business Excellence Awards last year due to pandemic situation. Now we can see that vacuum which we have created for 1 year. Now our members are coming forward and asking for it, and even today I can see more than 100 people, 121 in fact, when you look at the number as we speak, connected to this particular conversation with us. So the Bandula decided that we need to record this on behalf of you. Otherwise, recording it is going to be a bit difficult for each and every individual applicant who's going to get connected with us. Then you will be able to listen to it as and when you want. That's the kind of the sustainable way that we feel it is going to be suitable for this kind of situation. I'm not taking that much of time. I just briefly explain to you why we have changed, slight change in our application, and the model also slightly changed. And we captured so many things which are going to be helpful for you to inculcate in your organizations over a period of time rather than within 24 hours. All these changes are going to take time, but we need to start it right now. So in that spirit, I would like to kind of stop my conversation with you, allowing Mr. Vijay Singh and Sir Sanath Fernando to come up and do some more deliberations which are going to be extremely important for you to fill the application. Thank you very much for joining. Over to you, Bandha.
Thank you very much. That was Mr. Nandika Buddhipala, President of the National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka. Moving on with the agenda, I would like to invite Mr. Sunil Vijayasinghe. He is actually past President of the National Chamber and the Chairman of the NBEA 2021 panel of judges. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bandula. Good morning. I think the President explained everything very well and very comprehensively. I will just give a few words to start with on how the panel of judges would look at the applications and how we would evaluate you. First and foremost, I think you have to now, Mr. Sanath Fernando will take you through the application details, but remember a few things. One is that you have to be focused on understanding the question we asked. We are just saying explain this or that and so on. So you have to understand that fully and explain that adequately. Also, when you are doing your explanations in your document, just have a look at the marks, because the marks are very transparently given for each subcategory. Even the marks are given. So don't spend a lot of time on something that will give you just 1 mark or 2 marks or something like that. Spend more time, just like how you would answer an examination paper. Spend more time on the questions that will have a higher level of marks, and don't just dismiss any questions saying even if you don't know, you can always call the National Chamber and make some inquiries. Now, one important thing you should remember is that the person who is filling the application form should be at a certain level to understand all areas of the business. Some companies delegate it to a very junior person, and some of the questions are just dismissed with. For example, we ask some questions about maybe on your compliance with, says, if you are listed, if there is a certain definition for specified companies, those who come under the Sri Lanka Accounting and Auditing Standards Monitoring Board. So we ask some questions like that. And very often, if a junior person who has never heard of this institution called SLA SMB will say not relevant or something. And then you lose a lot of marks for that. Other thing we have noticed sometimes is that the application will speak a lot of things. And if you are shortlisted and we call your company for an interview at which the CEO and some maybe senior people attend, sometimes the CEO will give an explanation which is very different to the written document. Why does that happen? Because the CEO has not even seen the document that has been forwarded to us for evaluation. So make sure that before the document is submitted, before the application is submitted, that the CEO goes through at least the important aspects of the application. Because you have to defend that application if you are shortlisted at the interview. And the panel of judges will get a very poor opinion if you talk something totally different to what is there in the application. And other thing is sometimes we see if you are two subsidiary companies of some holding company. We found in one case a couple of years ago, it was the same application except the financial figures and except the name, everything else was same. And they had spent a lot of money on using glossy paper and all that, but all that was in vain, because it was, when we questioned them, we found that it had been done by a consultant, and he took the easy way out of just cut and paste. So we don't, you shouldn't do that. Other thing is that the size of the application is not what matters, but it's the contents that matter. So don't unnecessarily pad up with a lot of English words and so on, because it becomes even more difficult for the judges to go through all sorts of unwanted narrations. So I think, Devi, do you have some copies of the applications to show them? It has to be comprehensive. It has to be very well prepared. Yeah, there you can see what the application is like. And it doesn't, as I said, it's not the thickness of the application that matters, but the contents. And also make sure that even your annexures are sorted out very well so that the judges can refer to them immediately without having to go on a search to look for information. Yeah, I think to start with, those are my few comments. We will chip in later when there are questions.
Thank you very much, sir, for your comments. As per the agenda, I would like to move on with a brief description of the application, and that is about the general information that we are bringing in. So we will share the screen now with the presentation. So before we go into the actual technical presentation by Mr. Sanath Fernando, I will give you some very basic information about the application, which you need at the beginning of the application filling part. I think this screen is visible for everybody.
Yes.
Right. I think it's visible for everybody. Thank you very much. And you are joining here, ladies and gentlemen, for this National Business Excellence application briefing process. Sorry about that. The content of the presentation would be, we are looking at eligibility, classification of awards, application and evaluation procedure, basic information in printing the application, preparing the application, and NBEA 2021 excellence model. Those are actually technical details which will be presented by Mr. Sanath Fernando, and evaluation criteria, the marking scheme, and the special evaluation process that will take place in, and the Part C financial and the statistical information about the application also will be presented. So moving on, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, any registered business organization can
just to interrupt, Bandula, I don't know, on my screen, your presentation is not moving to the next slide. I don't know whether others don't have that problem.
For us
No,
also,
yes,
We do have the same.
we also have the same problem.
We can't
Yeah,
see
we
the
need to
other
use-
slides.
Correct. Yeah, you are correct, Suzy. We can't see other parts. Bandula, you have to move it.
Also, if you can get into the full screen.
Yeah, I think you're not on presentation mode.
Exactly.
Give me a minute that we are correcting it. Yeah, we are resharing it again. Enable edit mode.
You need to put it into the presentation mode as well. Bandula.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Can see, but if you put it into the presentation,
It's not on presentation mode.
yeah, then it is going to be large enough for people to read.
On this side, it is presentation mode.
Not really. While they are trying to put it to the presentation mode, you go on Bandula, otherwise, yeah.
And actually, any registered business in Sri Lanka who is having their operations or rather registration for 3 years for the date of application can apply. And divisions, units, estates, factories, and organizations, unless they are not legally registered as a separate legal entity, they cannot apply. I mean, divisions or units of companies, factories of large companies. Actually, there had been situations like that. They wanted to apply separately. Actually, only the registered company can apply. And overall gold award winner of the previous year is also not eligible to apply as far as present conditions are concerned for succeeding 3 years. So that is the situation. And as you see, ladies and gentlemen, the main awards are
Your slides are not moving again.
Yeah. It's not moving.
is it okay now?
No. It's not moving because it is not in the presentation mode, Bandula, and then somebody else, they have to operate it for you. You cannot remotely do it. I think that's where it is getting wrong.
I think it's best to get it on presentation mode and then start screen sharing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah. How is it now?
Now you're fine.
Now it's
Now
clear.
it is fine. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think Mr. Vijay Singh's suggestion worked. Thank you, sir. And the main awards are National Business Excellence Gold, the most pinnacle award for the overall excellence. And we have the Silver Award also for overall excellence. And the bronze award is also there for overall excellence. And there are criteria awards: excellence in corporate governance, excellence in capacity building, performance management, local market research, global market research, corporate social responsibility, environmental stability, and business and financial results. So all these categories, criteria also will be considered for separate awards. Next slide. Yeah, and other category awards, we are actually bringing in winner, first runner-up, and the second runner-up. Micro sector, small sector, medium, large, and extra large sectors. So there are business sector awards. So we are referring to the application page number of the application document. Okay. And how the categories are taken off, how you are categorized into different sizes. So this is actually very clearly given in the application form also. We are actually looking at if any one criteria falls into the higher category, you are in that category. So if you are a large, extra large company, your total capital employed is 5 billion, then you are in that. And then maybe your full-time employees could be 4,000, but if your annual revenue is around in the range of 5 billion, you are actually falling into that extra large category. So it is similarly applicable to other categories also. This can be further explained by our panel of experts today joining in. Next slide, Darshan. And as you see, there will be different stages of application reviews. We have the desk review, which is actually the technical review by the technical panel. And shortlisted participants or other applicants will be interviewed by the panel of judges. And third stage, again, panel of judges will have a final review in deciding awards and places for the applicants. So it's just wanted to remind everybody that chairman of the panel of judges will be the sole and the final deciding authority regarding the evaluation. There is a panel of judges headed by the chairman of the panel of judges. And the panel of judges and the technical panel will not accept any of the samples or products. So please don't try to deliver or rather contact separately the panel of judges or the technical panel members, which will be a disqualification for you. We are very strict on this, ladies and gentlemen. Right. In the very basic application, you will find in the part A, the general information about your application. It is already, many of you have already collected this application. You know what I am mentioning about. And the part B is containing the responses for the actual award criteria, the evaluation criteria. The part C of the application contains financial and the business results tables that are coming in. To be very specific about the financial year, if your financial year ends in December, so you are looking at January to December of 2020, your accounts, the audited accounts, and if your financial year is March to April, you're talking about 2020 to 2021 April to March accounts. Just to very briefly tell you the sizes of the application, Mr. Vijay Singh also mentioned. So limited to, we expect you to be around these, your responses to be prepared according to these guidelines. Extra large and the large scale companies can look at having the proposal around 50 pages. You can have your annexures separately given, and medium scale companies can go up to about 40 pages. So this is just a guideline. If you stick to this, it is much easier for the technical panel and the panel of judges to go through the applications rather than padding up the application form with a lot of additional information. What is required is to be submitted. And you are supposed to deliver your application to 450 DR Vijayardhanamawatha, Colombo 10. The specified time by now, the deadline for the submission is 16 hours on Wednesday, 15th December 2021. And we want to be very specific that all the application information submitted to us will be treated utmost confidence. It's considered very confidential and will not be divulged or will not be given out to anybody for any purpose. So it's only for evaluation purpose that National Chamber is using it. This was mentioned by Mr. Vijay Singh also. The statement about your company from the highest ranking executive of the company should also be mentioned. I think this will be further explained by the technical panel plus the next presentation by Mr. Sanath Fernando's presentation. So there is a possibility that you could collect the soft copy of the application from the chamber. So it is much easier for you to fill it. Hard copy is given for the information purpose, but you can collect your soft copy of the application where it will make you comfortable in basically filling up the required details. We are moving on to part B. This is the actual technical presentation of the today's event. I would like to invite Fernando, Chairman, Technical and the Financial Evaluation Panel, NBEA 2021, to proceed with the presentation. Over to you, sir.
All right. Can I please have a confirmation that you can see my slides?
Yes, sir, we can see you.
I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it moved.
All right. Okay. Right. Right. So thank you, Bandula, for that introduction. And it's my pleasant task now to take you through some of the areas which are important for your information because as the president mentioned, there are some changes in terms of the aspects that are tested, as well as the depth of some of the areas which had undergone a few changes, as Mr. Buddhipala mentioned. Right. So I'm sure you agree with the just national chambers that evaluation of business excellence is not going to be a simple task, and it's not going to be easy as well. So it's rather a complex as well as complicated activity, and that is because the National Chamber of Commerce believes that excellence in business should be measured in a comprehensive manner, but it should also be transparent enough for those who apply for the awards, NBEA awards, and also they need to be satisfied with the outcome, and that's why it needs to be transparent also. So as Mr. Vijay Singh mentioned, the application gives you all areas, the details of each of the areas, and it also transparently explains even the marking scheme. So that's where we have started, the encouragement into taking part in this award scheme. If you see the overall structure of the measurement of the business excellence, it has gone through a few changes. So for the purpose of measuring the business excellence for these 2021 awards, it's done in 7 aspects, right? So very transparent, and in 7 aspects, there'll be a measurement of the business excellence. So firstly, an organization should have a strategy and leadership, and that's the starting point of being an excellent business entity. And secondly, there should be a proper corporate governance of the strategy, and also building of capacity over time, and performance management, which represent the 4th and the 5th aspect of the measurement aspect, and also the appropriate market reach. It could be either locally, or it could be globally, or it could be both. And that also will represent excellence of businesses. And also the new areas that have been brought in are mostly in the 6th aspect of the measurement model. That's where excellence in corporate social responsibility and environmental sustainability has been brought in, right? So now all these aspects of business excellence will finally bring financial results, and that's the 7th and the final aspect of measuring your business excellence. So the excellence in strategy, leadership, excellence in corporate governance, capacity building, performance management, CSR, market outreach, as well as environmental sustainability, will be demonstrated in your financial results ultimately. And that's where we believe the financial results will be actually the final demonstration of the entirety of the business excellence. So this is how the model works. And I'm sure you would also be a little concerned about now, given the current pandemic environment that we are in, especially certain corporates faced certain challenging circumstances in the last financial year as well as in the previous financial year. Now that doesn't mean that if you had seen subdued levels of profits or reductions in your activity, this model is not going to punish you for that. We have given you ample opportunity for you to explain how you were resilient in terms of the challenges that you faced, and that will also be awarded marks. It's not only showing growth in the profits or growth in the activities that we are solely looking at. We are also looking at the resilience in detail, and that will be the testimony of the business excellence in all the 7 aspects that we are looking at, right? So I will go through these aspects, one by one. So if you look at the spread of the marks amongst these 7 areas, you could see the 1,000 marks being spread into 7 areas. And the highest number of marks would be in the business and financial results. And that will have 200 marks. And the other 6 areas, which are expanded and augmented from the previous applications and the previous model, there is a very good spread amongst each area. And you would see the the range of the spread is from about 120 marks to 150 marks. So you would see 20% of the 1,000 marks in the financial results, and every other area ranging from 12% to 15% is well spread. And the weightage, as you could see, is quite spread. There is no major focus on any one of these areas. So that's where the National Chamber, believes that this is the structure that we should be adopting for the measurement of business excellence in this year, right? So if I may go into more details of this. Now, the first area will get you 150 marks in total, and you have about several sub areas inside that. So the strategy and leadership is the first one. And as the president mentioned, the leadership aspect has been brought in newly into the model because it's the totality of the leadership plus the strategy that will drive the business excellence, and that's why leadership was brought in. And the model structure, as you saw, the leadership needs to be in all the 7 aspects. So that's why you would see it as more of a pillar rather than a component of the structure. So the first area is about the traditional, the vision, mission, and the values. And as the president mentioned, the purpose of the organization, as many organizations now go to identify, has also been brought in, which is a new area that has been brought in, right? So watch out for these 10 marks, and these simple 10 marks that you can get. And then also make sure that you explain the purpose of the organization and how it is communicated, and that's very important. And in terms of the other areas that are important to that is whether the employees have internalized the vision, mission, values, and the purpose. That's where your employees will have to live the purpose of the organization. So how is that communicated to them is something which you would want to briefly explain. And also how the purpose, the vision, mission, and the values are deployed in practice. And it's not just a statement, but it's lived in the organization. And that's what we are looking at. Now here, as Mr. Vijayasinghe mentioned, we don't expect to see stories around this, but just, we would, value the brevity of the presentation which you are making so that every one of us can understand it briefly as to, what is the purpose and how it is practiced and how it is communicated. And in terms of strategy, now, if you see the first 10 marks is for the one which I mentioned, and then the strategy has attracted 25 marks. And if you look at the 1.4, the fourth area in that sub area, that is the leadership, and that has also attracted another 25 marks. So that's where you need to spend more time in explaining the story behind your organization. And that's what we are looking at. So in explaining your strategy, you need to explain the method used to prepare the strategy and how employees have been involved and how leadership is given to the process of the making of the strategy. And then that collaborative activity of bringing all stakeholders internally as to how that was done is what we are looking at. And also how changes in the business environment have been assessed and how future scenarios are conceived by the strategy in terms of the formulation of it. There could be, like in any good strategy, you could also have to look at the future strategies along with the future risks which you might face, challenges which you might face, and then how those were embedded into going down that path of your strategy. And also how was the strategy implemented and evaluated, and when you see that you're somewhat towards you're going to get derailed due to various circumstances, and what corrective action were taken, and how did you bring the organization down to the path that you wanted to go down based on the purpose. So that's how you would have to explain, spending some time in explaining to us the strategy of the organization and how it was deployed. And also how the organization's overall specific performance is reviewed by the top management. And that is done through explaining, that communication through meetings, etc., and displaying to everyone to understand this is our organization purpose, and this is the the strategy of our organization, and this is how we are going to do it. And also looking at the leadership, the newly brought in area. We are going to give 25 marks overall for that aspect, that sub aspect. What we are looking at is an answer to this question: how did the leadership inspire and motivate the workforce towards understanding and striving for excellence, right? So that's that's where you might want to explain to us, how did the leadership inspire and motivate the workforce in going down and achieving that strategy? And also how the organization's leadership actively promoted, harmoniously about the industrial relations. The dialogue between the unions, consultative committees, and all that. How open was your organization in that collaborative leadership is what we are also looking at. And we have also brought in some other aspects of governance as newly incorporated areas. And this is where we are looking specifically at how does your organization distribute ownership and control. Now we understand there are different natures of businesses. You could have owner managed to well diversified and well distributed ownership type of organization. So it's a fine art, depending on your nature of the organization. How did the organization distribute ownership and control is something what we are looking at. And also, what does the company do to ensure leadership diversity, gender balance, and equitable pay? Now that's, if you look at the diversity and the gender balance and equitable pay, these are things which you may already have. And this area wasn't that descriptive in the previous applications. Now we have brought that in because this is a very important area as far as today's context is concerned. And also describing what ways does a company guard against corruption and anti-competitive practices. Now that's also very much important in today's context. And we'd like to hear from you. It's not only statements that we are actually looking at. We need you to explain to us in a way that we could have some evidence around what you're going to say. I know when you explain things such as, leadership diversity, gender balance, and equitable pay, please don't only restrict it to sentences. which you are very good at drafting. But we are also looking at aspects of how you practice them, and then what was the result, and that will give us the comfort that okay, it's not only that you preach, you practice that too. So that's where you might want to explain with some evidence of diversity, gender balance, and equitable pay, and also how do you guard your company against corruption and anti-competitive practices. And also another new area which will bring you about 6 marks out of these allocated marks is how does a company ensure ethical accounting and tax practices? Now, if I want to explain this a little bit, now if you have qualifications or modifications of the audit opinion, you might have certain challenges in terms of explaining that your accounting is, generally accepted, because there is a modification by the your independent auditor. And also tax practices. Now that's also very important. Now, we see in many organizations, you have situations where you have resorted to aggressive tax positions, claiming certain tax items from your taxes, and that has yielded, that has attracted perhaps very large assessments from the regulators, and maybe you could have several legal cases at the board of review or any other level, and that those activities will go on to say that we are not saying that you should be doing it or should not be doing it, but from a contingent liability perspective, there is something that we need to evaluate in terms of how ethical your tax practices are. So that's where a new area has been introduced, and that's very important, and this is what the overall National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka has thought of bringing as new items, and also how the organization strategy was adapted to be resilient amidst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this is a very, very important area. Now, all of us have challenging circumstances, and the financial results would show that we have undergone a lot of challenges. Some may have reduced profits, reduced activities, while there are some organizations that actually thrived amidst of COVID pandemic. Now, what we are looking at here is not to award marks for those who have thrived in amidst of the pandemic. What we are looking at is how you have explained how agile was your organization, how did you adapt to these new challenges that you have faced, especially in terms of COVID-19, and how did you make your organization resilient. You could have changed your maybe delivery patterns too. You could have changed your business model temporarily, and also you would have done certain changes, restructured your labor and input methods, all that. Now that is all to stay resilient. Now that is where we are looking at some information about how did you adapt yourself, how did you adapt the existing strategy amidst of this significant challenge that you faced. So then that's where you would get about 30 marks, and this is where you could score most. And then it's so this is where I wanted to explain at the outset. It's not only the financial results that we are looking at in detail in this year. It's as to how adapted your strategy was to face and be resilient in this pandemic, right? So so you can explain during COVID-19, what were the major challenges that you faced, and what measures did you put in place to overcome them, and what are the changes that your business have made to accommodate the new norm. Now, that's also very important as to explain this is what we did, and that's a part of your strategy, and that's a part of your leadership. And it's true that you wouldn't have achieved pre-pandemic results by doing so, which will be evident anyway, but we will not be too much focused on how much your profits have declined. That's not our focus. The focus is going to be, how did you adapt yourself to this new norm? That's where we are looking at. And so remember, that'll bring in about 150 marks, and that's a very important area for you to focus on. And in terms of corporate governance, the governance structure and how the board evaluates itself is very important. And this governance, as you would have seen in the previous application process also, the governance in private companies vis-a-vis, the public interest companies, the listed companies can be different. So we are not going to, put both of them into the same measurement. We are looking at, the aspects of listed companies or the public interest companies separately, as well as the private companies separately. And you could see as to the evaluation criteria, as well as the committee structure, which could be much more evident in listed company scenarios, as opposed to things like how these policies and guidelines have been communicated to the companies, and then how do you measure against corruption, and how policies and measurement with regard to harassment, sexual harassment, and discrimination, all that, those are common matters, not necessarily only for the public interest companies. So that's where we are giving you adequate a spread of marks, where you could be able to explain out of total 100 marks, taking the appropriate amount of number of pages to explain this area. And in terms of capacity building, this is also a very, very important area. Now, this is where we are looking at how product innovation was carried out. And we need to be given some information about your R&D expenditure, perhaps not going into details of the monetary values, but at least to say the percentage, as a percentage of revenue, what was the R&D expenditure. That will show you, what matters most in terms of product innovation. And also in going in to explain the success of new product development, you may be able to, quantitatively explain, what was expected, anticipated, and what was the outcome. And also now here, of course, again, we have given you ample space and opportunity for you to explain this, area of capacity building, taking into account that, you would have had a significant challenge in the pandemic duration for you to do this, innovation, etc. So that's where we are giving you, the ability to explain the new products revenue over the last 3 years, as opposed to only last year. So looking at as to perhaps the pre-pandemic, maybe 1 year pandemic, and then the current most year, you may be able to explain as to how your organization believe in capacity building, and how do you differentiate your products from your products and services from your competition? That's also something which we'd like to understand. And also describing the success of the process innovation to improve the quality and productivity is also something which we would like you to explain in your application. The new investments made, it could be to improve the existing processes or develop new product or to expand the capacity. Now that's an area where you could explain. We saw, a profound use of technology by many businesses, especially in the pandemic area, pandemic duration, to bring that resiliency into your organizations. You should be able to explain that in more details, right? And also how processes have been improved. That's in terms of quality enhancement, or perhaps to reduce rejects, shorten cycle times, or even make it safer for your employees. What did you do? That's where you're explaining about your challenging circumstances. And also describing how people in the organizations were developed and how you kept them motivated, and how did you make sure that they participate positively into the affairs of the organization, amidst all these challenges, is something that you would also want to explain. I know, each one of you would have different specifics of the story, behind your organization, and that's where we'd like to, hear, or rather read your, story, and then, there is going to be some interviews also that we are going to have in trying to figure out, whether your story makes sense or not. So that's where the capacity building would come handy with 150 total marks. And then you also have the next area, the performance management. That's where the budgetary process, the management information systems, as to how an organization is managed through your internal information, and also individual performance evaluation criteria. At that process of how do you evaluate the performance of individuals in line with the overall stated purpose, the vision, mission of your organization. So that's also something which we would be looking at in detail. So here also you would see about 130 marks being allocated, and that's about 13% of your overall marks. And this is where you need to spend a little bit more time. The global market reach, depending on whether you're a fully, predominantly a local entity that serves local markets in your products and services, or are you a mixed entity with exports and local sales, or are you mostly export-oriented organization? So all of those will be dealt with in this section of global market reach, and this is very important, and that's why 150 marks have been allocated. So in terms of market reach, if you're an entity that is present in the local markets, and your exports are low, then you could use the section 5.1. But if you're predominantly export oriented, you could use the section 5.2 in explaining the details. So this 5.1 and 5.2 would attract a total of 100 marks, where you would explain the market shares in your industry, and how the brand has performed, if that is your strategy, the awards and the recognitions, listing them out. Most importantly, it has to be in these three financial periods that we are looking at. Current financial period, ending 2021, and then the comparative periods. And that's where something that you may have received a decade ago might not be relevant to us now. So that's where you need to be careful in explaining what is happening now as opposed to many years ago. In terms of if you're a predominantly an export-oriented business, 5.2, as I mentioned to you, needs to get completed. And that's where you would look at the growth in exports percentages, expansion into new markets, new products or services, the performance of your brand, and all of these will have certain, sub, sections, which is already in the application, which is, self-explanatory. And that's where you can, explain, but be brief, but address the points rather than, telling us, long stories, which we will not have the luxury of time in reading the whole thing, right? So in terms of processes, as I mentioned to you, the customer satisfaction processes, how do you, assess that? The customer's complaint process, how customers are compensated for defects and service breakdowns. Now that's where you need a little more transparency into this area in terms of making sure that your, market outreach is well looked after. And then you care for your, customers and any other stakeholders. So this sub area has 50 marks, and that's a very important area as well. The sixth area is the excellence in corporate social responsibility, CSR, and environmental sustainability. Now, this is an area that has undergone a lot of change in keeping up with the ESG principles, which we have brought in to your application as evaluation criteria. So if you would see the CSR strategies, describing the CSR concepts which are adopted. Now, don't try to define what CSR is and all blah, 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 but tell us as to how it is applied in your organization. And you could explain, how do you, practice CSR in your organization also, describing any activities towards social integration, which is a very important factor. And how do you implement those is also very important rather than only just preaching, right? So that's something which you might want to explain. Now here, if you're a subsidiary, you should only explain what is relevant to your entity rather than your parent, right? So that's something which you might want to keep in mind. And going into a little more details about the CSR and the environmental sustainability, we are asking specific questions for you to explain. Are any activities carried out in association with the government, governmental organization, NGOs, or any other groups? And if so, you could provide those details of those activities towards CSR. Are there any strategies implemented with a motive to capture a clientele that may purchase companies' products or services because of, bringing that obligation as a result of, their collaborative, participation in the CSR activities? Now, how is that feeling given to your customers that they are, taking part in the CSR activities because you have promoted certain products and services which are aimed at CSR? And any special projects or community-based programs which you have carried out, what does the organization do to ensure product safety and quality in terms of social impact? Now, this is also very important. Now, your supply chain management, making sure that you have that you practice ethical sourcing and the supply chain practices. Now, how have you made sure that, you do business with, supply chain players, who are ethical. Like I don't have to explain this because you know how you do it. Your labor practices to your, quality control in terms of the raw materials to your organizations, whether you use harmful content in your practices and products in the processes. And that is what we are looking at in terms of ethical sourcing and supply chain practices. And also, it's not only what is, we don't want you to only say what you are doing. You need to also explain how you're publishing the ethical practices. How have you explained to your vendors, your suppliers, this is what we would require our vendors, our suppliers to be also in terms of making our products ethically acceptable, and we expect our suppliers also to be ethical in terms of their supply chain, and describing how the organization measures those and the reliability of those reported practices is also very important. And do you have impact assessments of your goods and services done, looking at the impact of your products and services to society at large? And if so, provide details. Now, this is exactly the excellence in CSR, bringing in the environmental sustainability also, embedded into the criteria, right? So you you might have CSR activities, but also making sure that you look after the communities and your stakeholders, societies. The qualitative benefits that you had seen, have been reaped by the society is something which you might want to explain. Also, towards the employees, your responsibilities towards the employees. The freedom of movement of employees, whether you have certain restrictions placed upon them, that's something which we might want to understand. And also, are there any restrictions in, for employees pertaining to freedom of association? That's about your forming of unions, etc. If the organization has made unions and other worker council, is there a bargaining process which is transparent enough? And also, the educational aspect of your employees as well as the children of your employees. So that's your social side of the CSR. And also making sure that we also get some overview of your top management and the CEO's involvement and the contribution to the societal affairs at large. We want you to explain what you do in terms of programs of importance in communities as well as the national level. Here the diversity is what we are looking at. How have you practiced your CSR and environmental sustainability activities as a collective social group? That's what you are looking at. And also sustainability targets, goals, if you have, you need to explain those. And also publishing, how have you published these? And then, how do you measure, these CSR activities? And what steps that you have taken internally and externally, about the reliability of this information. And if you have any evidence, recent evidences around those impacts and perhaps various reports that you would have got, you could attach them as annexures so that we could look at them. And also, the topic that we very much see in the news is about the climate, those aspects that, describe what your organization does to combat climate change. That's also important. And what processes that you have put in place to reduce environmental deterioration and reduce your carbon footprint. So those are areas that you can explain. The cleaner production, greener production, productivity initiatives is something which we are also looking at. So there are enough and more areas which you can explain, which will bring you a lot of details, and this is a new area which had been brought into this year's evaluation criteria. So the financial and statistical information is the last piece in this whole evaluation, where where 200 marks would be awarded. Now, here we are looking at the standard numbers in terms of revenues, gross profit, value addition, ROEs and ROAs. That's where we would want you to explain in the last several years, as the application requires, what has been your financial results. And also here is where we want you to explain your organization may be impacted by policy changes, perhaps climate changes, and also other uncontrollable factors, looking at the immediate or the recent most financial periods. Now, we want you to explain that so that we are aware of the underlying reasons for us, for you to have perhaps challenged circumstances. So if you have explained that, then we would read your financial numbers in the backdrop of what you explained to be the challenges that you faced, as opposed to trying to figure out as to why you have reduced revenues, GPs, etc. So you might want to explain, and we've just given one sentence here. We didn't go to elaborate because it's a case by case, on a case by case basis. What is most relevant to your organization. So talk about the policy changes, climate change, and uncontrollable factors that has impacted your results. So that's something which you might want to explain in detail. And you have the standard details of numbers, revenues, and profits, which you might want to include, like as well as the ROEs and ROAs. So those are important. So these are standard numbers which you anyway should be having in your details. About R&D details also. Investments details that is there in the application. And also, these, it's always good to have some assurance from about the numbers that you are presenting in your application. So that's why we have asked all of you who are applying for this to bring in some audit certification to this through a special purpose audit of only section 1, 2, 3, and 4. Not all the areas, but only 1, 2, 3, 4. So that there is some, certification as to the accuracy of those numbers, so that we don't have to worry too much about the reliability. So when your, independent auditor explains so, we have nothing to worry about. So that's where we would require you to get that special purpose audit report also on the items in 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the Part C. Now, in the application itself, we only want the name of the auditor and their seal, and then any report that is given by the auditor can be attached to the appendix so that we could cross-refer it. Right. So this is basically all what I wanted to explain to you in terms of the details, the aspects and the spread of the marks and the important areas that you need to look at, and how you could bring in some assurance through audit certification or any other certifications that you have, and that's where that's what we are looking at. I would also like to appeal that as you know, Mr. Vijay Singh as well as all others explain, you need to be brief enough to explain everything. But if you have bound volumes of thousands of pages, I don't think you know, your evaluation panel would have the luxury of time to go through all of those. So be mindful of that also. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Over to you, Bandula.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanath Fernando. Then he was the chairman. He's the chairman of technical and the financial evaluation panel of NBEA 2021. Now we open the floor for questions and answers. We have the expert panel available with us, Mr. Nandika Buddhipala, President of the National Chamber, Mr. Sanath Fernando, the chairman of the technical evaluation panel, and Mr. Sunil Vijayasinghe, the panel chairman of the panel of judges of NBEA 2021. So we will open the floor for questions. Please bring in your question very briefly to the panel, and if you may raise your hand, we will open it. Maybe you can switch on your video and the audio at the time of asking the question. Thank you very much.
There is one person who has raised a hand.
Good morning, sir. This is Kumudari Piris here.
From where?
I'm from National Development Bank PLC.
Yes.
Thank you, sir, to you at the chamber and all the resource persons for conducting this session on our behalf. Quick question on section 7 of Part B, where we are giving the financial information. The auditor's confirmation, is that mandatory or is that voluntary?
Yeah, on behalf of the chamber, I think we need to clarify it. That part is going to be mandatory. Yeah.
So thank you, sir, for that. But I would like to bring a small point. This is on sections 1, 2, 3, and 4, all of which are already disclosed in our annual reports, which are already audited and carrying the auditor's opinion for that matter. None of this information falls outside of the audited information. So for listed companies, would there be a chance to refer to the audited reports, please?
It is going to be something like this. Like, for example, we might get about 120 applications, and then there again, we'll get at least 50 pages or 100 pages reports. And then there again, we'll have the goods and services kind of the value addition separate statement. And then there will be export destinations, which auditors will have to have some amount of understanding as well as certification. Thereafter, we'll have research and development expenditure. Then thereafter, we have investments under different categories running into about 3 years. All that has to be certified. That the reason for us to include other elements, maybe return on assets, ROE, ROA, and others, what would happen? Then we'll have to maybe 120 times, we'll have to go into the details and to extract it, like 120 times into 4 years or 5 years, and into that's going to be a very, very difficult thing for us to manage. We would like to see it in a comprehensive manner in one particular source, which is gone through by the auditors. I don't think that they should charge. I'm not an auditor, Sanath, Mr. Fernando is there. There's no need for them to charge that much of big amount for it.
Yes.
And that we will facilitate, because we are trying to divert our attention specifically to the qualitative aspects of it. And normally what happens, maybe half of these applicants, as you are aware, are going to get interviewed also. And then that amount of constraints is very much. And we have a handful of people who will be going through with Sanath, Mr. Fernando this time under the Technical Evaluation Committee. They will have to go through all these submissions, inclusive of this Part B. Of course, what you said is correct. When it comes to the first 4 elements, it's those can be found in the audited statements. But when we look at other, maybe item number 5, 6, 7, and 8, then there is some amount of work that is required to be done through some independent the person to give us some kind of corroboration. So that's where it is. I think you might tolerate us with this requirement.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very comprehensive explanation. Yes, very much agreed.
Thank you.
Till the next question comes, may I say something on that CEO statement?
Please carry on. Yeah, it's very important.
That CEO statement, we found, the panel of judges found that in many cases, it doesn't say why you are an excellent company and why you deserve an award. And that is what we want in that CEO statement. So merely repeating the type of activities you have, the products and things like that drawn from the annual report is not sufficient. We want, actually, we want the CEO to specifically say, for this reason, we consider ourselves an excellent company. And if you think you are excellent in a particular aspect, like performance management or CSR and environment, then you can add on something to say, we are the best, or we are an excellent company in terms of this, because of these things that we do. So about 50% of the CEO statements fall short of what we are really looking for. I think there is a written question.
Yeah, I think what they asking is point number 7, financial results. If we do not have export sales, do we need to put 0 or not applicable? Maybe the not applicable is going to be fine. I think it's Gayan who's asking the question. Not applicable is going to be fine, isn't it, Mr. Jasmine? And
yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Many have requested the recording of the
recording, yeah. At least
session.
About 20-30 people. Yes.
In fact, this is already available on the National Chamber Facebook. This was given live. And at the same time, we have a special website for National Business Excellence. Name of the site is nationalbusinessexcellence.lk. So the recording will be available through that as well. And then whoever who wants it will be getting it through email as well. The link will be given on email. Unmute.
I think what really had happened, Mr. Sanath Fernando had gone into very much of details and even explained not only the new ones, but new questions that we raised, but even conceptual framework and importance of those elements as well as questions and what is expectation as well very clearly. That's why from the very beginning, when the number of participants, Sanath, when they were there, at the point of leaving, finishing your the presentation, everybody was there. So it's a very good acceptance, Mr. Jessica, that normally we cannot see over the latter part of presentation people leave. Now they started leaving because they know that the presentation will be there. And the very, I would say, in a very simple way, you have explained it to all the people who can understand, and making it available, as Bandula suggested, on the web is going to be a very good exercise. Earlier, we didn't have these kind of facilities. What we do, we used to conduct about 2-3 sessions. Now there is no need for us to have something like that. So that can be repeated and downloaded, and people can go through as and when they want. And better, Bandula, we need to keep maybe separate, maybe what you call email address or something like that created. If they have any questions, for them to put it into that particular email as well. Then we can monitor it and give the feedback again. If you can do that also, is going to be useful. But I think the presentation which Sir Fernando did is very, very comprehensive. The most of the questions are answered automatically from there. So if there are no questions,
there is somebody has raised the hand.
Can wait.
Somebody has raised the hand.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Actually, I have a small clarification on the part C about the auditor's certification. So here it is mentioned. So the last time what we did was we got the auditor's certification for the whole part C. But here it is mentioned that the special purpose audit report covering item 1, 2, 3, and 4, the part C above is attached. So is it sufficient only to get the 1, 2, 3, 4 and item certified by the auditors, or else do we need to get the certification of auditors for the whole part C? Because finance department told me to get verified it from you before they are requesting it from the auditors.
Can I answer that, Radhika?
Yeah. I think what finally we discussed because of this complication, isn't it? Okay. Yeah, you can answer. I think we have come into a compromise the latter part of the discussions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the specified areas only are required to be, checked by the independent auditors. There may be so many other areas which, I don't think it's required. And then if you require the external auditors to certify those, your cost would be high. So we have looked at transparently that it needs to be
exactly. There are so many documentation we submitted as well. That's right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think I made maybe an error also in answering to the question which raised by the NBEA bank as well. Sanath, isn't it? Like finally, I think we had the long discussion since we have had this kind of queries coming through.
Yeah,
I think we finally restricted this requirement to 1, 2, 3, 4. Which is going to be very, very, very simple exercise.
Very simple.
There's no additional scope of work for auditors.
Yeah.
So we will manage in that sense, I think. Sorry about it. Rather than, at the last discussions only we came into a conclusion that we require these first 4 questions. Yeah, thank you very much.
If I may add one more point to the previous question, Buddhi. In terms of listed companies, you have the annual report, but why do you want the auditor's report also? Now, if you look at the annual report, you would have only the current details and the last year, but our application has 5 years. So that's the reason why we require the auditor certification.
Yeah, can I just add a few more points until the next question comes up? So everyone would have noticed that the application is really selecting excellence. So overall excellence and some characteristic excellence. So in my opening remarks, I said, don't spend too much time on unnecessary things, go by the marks. But I would like to clarify that and say, if you are really excelling in a particular area, it's okay giving a little more information on that. And one other thing is that if you are giving details about any particular award or certificate or something that you have got in your annex, you give some clarification about that. Now, for example, not all the judges may be familiar with the Rainforest Alliance certification and so on, or the good agricultural practices certificates for plantation. Now, if you have got your Rainforest Alliance certification, for example, give a little write-up about what this Rainforest Alliance is so that the judges can read it up and know what it is all about. Other thing is what we noticed last time in the CSR, while some people just do philanthropy and CSR and so on, there are some people who are highly focused, CSR and environment. Now, for example, a shipping company says because they are in shipping and they are closer to the environment, like the marine pollution, they are doing specific work on reducing marine pollution. So which is directly related to their environment, to their company. Or plantation companies are doing more in protecting the environment, in documenting the fauna and flora in their plantations for added knowledge, even for students and so on, producing manuals in that area and so on. So that's another point. Then the final point is somehow try to get your CEO involved, because then only he will understand what he has to put in his statement. If he are delegated to you, you do the report and say he has to be present at a presentation where you present this report, so that he'll be thoroughly familiar with what you are presenting, so that when he comes for the interview, if they are called, then he'll be in a better position to defend that report. Okay, those few words. Thank you.
Looks like we do not have any more questions. We can give one last question if anybody wants to raise a question. I think clarifications so far provided are very detailed. It is sufficient, I believe, and the recording is also going to be available for everybody. Yeah, we have another question coming up. Udeni Sharmila is raising a question. Please go ahead.
Thank you for your time. One last question. Actually, this year, in year 2021, we had a structural change. So for the report that we have to submit our last organization hierarchy, right? I just wanted to verify that. Can I submit the updated organization hierarchy, or else shall I go ahead with the last year one? Because the report is about 2020. That's why.
Meaning that the restructuring took place
in year 2021.
2021.
Yes.
So that is after the after 31st March, is it?
Yes.
Now this application, if I understand, is based on the information up to 31st March 2021, right?
Right.
Correct. Yes, Mrs.
So any subsequent structural changes will not come into this application?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to verify. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, one more question regarding the same question that was asked. What if the structural change happen within the financial year? Then do we have the new structure, or we have to have both the organization structures?
If that took place during the year, I think it is better to maybe explain the previous and the current, because maybe part of the year, under the previous structure, you would have gone through your operations. Then part of the year under the new structure. Maybe better to explain both the sides of it to give some understanding the technical panel and the panel objectives. There's no need to kind of go into very much details as such, but at least give essential elements which were changed and essential new things, new structure that you have introduced. And maybe a slight indication how it has changed is going to be enough, I think, rather than going into so much of details.
Okay, thank you.
I actually have a similar question because our company went in for an IPO after the financial year. So before the 31st of March, it was a private limited company, and then afterwards it's a PLC. So not sure the corporate governance sections, which would be the applicable version of it.
Before going to IPO, I think you went to IPO after the financial year.
Yes.
Then I think, as Mr. Jessica mentioned earlier also, then you have to come up as a private limited company rather than the IPO.
Okay, all right.
Because you perform as a private limited company during the entire year.
Right, sure, thanks.
But the application...
Am I correct?
Yeah, I think because the application doesn't really change whether you're private or public. We don't have two separate applications. No? Is that right?
The corporate governance section, there is a part where you have to mention the
that is equally applicable even to a private company. You know, that is a question that a lot of people ask us. You know, why do we need to have this and that? Because that is only applicable for listed companies. But what we specifically say is that we are trying to raise the standards of even private companies to come close to the requirements of a public listed company. Now, it is not mandatory for you certain things, but if you are practicing good governance and you're in the process of adopting good management and governance practices, then we encourage you to adopt those practices that are mandatorily required by a listed company, although it is not mandatory for you. So that is our intention, because we want to raise the standard. So you can see that there are many private companies in this country who are not mandatorily required to follow those because they are private companies. But since they are far thinking, they adopt those good practices of a public listed company, right? And then you have a chance of scoring more if you can show that you have adopted those practices. So it is the application is the same. Of course, if you are a public listed company, then of course we will look closer at the mandatory requirement. So basically our application, you can see, is like in two parts, like in running a company. One part is the performance side of it, which you will show by what are called by the financial results. So that will show the impact of your performance. We also are focusing on enablers of that performance. So when we ask you for the strategy, what you are doing about strategy, what you are doing about corporate governance and all that, what we believe is those are enablers, which will finally result in good financial performance and greater sustainability over a longer period of time. Other thing is, of course, the conformance dimension, where we look at whether you conform to the certain mandatory, that is not only the statutory requirements, but also the regulatory requirement by the regulators which regulate your particular type of industry. But in all that, what we are looking for also is certain things which are not mandatory but are good practices. So there is nowhere, I think, which requires CSR to be mandatory. But if you do CSR, that is what the society expects you to be and to do. So that's how we are looking at this whole thing, sort of in a composite sense. That's how we are looking at it. So if you are a private company and you adopt good practices that are applicable to a public listed company, then obviously you will score more marks.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Vijayasankar. Just a small clarification in the application, point number 2.2.1. For listed companies, there are 10 marks, but for non-listed companies, there are 0 marks. So I should not focus on that section, is it?
It is something like this. I think your question came because if you maybe in the middle you have gone for IPO, then there's an issue.
Yes.
Then you have to repeat maybe as a the listed company, maybe part of the period, and maybe part of the period as other. Now, when you look at it, even though the 40 marks are allocated differently for 2 different types, one is listed, one is unlisted. Then when it comes to the first question, since you are in the other, there is no need for you to answer the question 2-1. But still, you will get the same marks when you look at 2.2. We have allocated marks coming in 40, but different allocation for each and every point. If you are a listed company, you get different marks. If you are a non-listed or other company, you will get different marks. So then there is no way that you will get different marks when you are a listed or otherwise. But different questions will carry different marks for listed companies and others. But fortunately, you went on to IPO in the not during the period. But when you come for the next time, you will have a problem. Yes, it's good indication. We'll tackle how we can advise you when it comes to the next year. And we believe that normally, repeatedly, people who come for this competition, they used to be there for over a period of time until they get the first place. Then thereafter only then they leave out for a while and come back again. So it's going to be maybe a good aspect that we need to look at when you come next year. But this year, there's no complication for you.
All right. And thank you, Mr. Budipal.
Any other questions?
So if we do not have any other questions, we would like to wind up the session. Is it okay? May I have the permission of the technical panel? Okay. Okay, since there are no other questions on the application side, we would like to wind up the session for today. And as we mentioned from the beginning, the recording is available even now through the Facebook Live of the National Chamber official Facebook page. And at the same time, we will make it available through nationalbusinessexcellence.lk website as well. And then whoever who wants the recording, the link will be provided through the email as well. So in the meantime, I would like to thank 3 experts who joined in today: Mr. Nandika Budipala, President of the National Chamber, Mr. Sunil G. Vijayasinha, Chairman of the panel of judges of Business Excellence, and Mr. Sanath Fernando, Technical Panel Chairman of the National Business Excellence Award. Thank you very much, sirs, for your valuable time spent on this clarification session. And we thank all the participants also on behalf of the National Chamber. Thank you very much.
Thank you.